So there's this fierce debate that's erupted online, and it's not about if change is needed in Iran, but about who really gets to speak for that change and what that change should even look like. We're going to unpack this whole thing, this really complex and passionate argument, piece by piece. At the heart of it all is this incredibly fiery exchange between an Iranian activist and a Western commentator. And really, it perfectly captures this deep, deep divide in how the struggle inside Iran is seen from the outside. And this is the accusation that just set everything off. It's such a direct and powerful challenge. The suggestion here is that certain Western narratives aren't just, unhelpful, but they're actually causing real harm to women on the ground in Iran. So to really get a handle on this, we need to carefully unpack the two very different perspectives that are clashing here. You've got one side warning against foreign interference, and on the other, a really desperate plea just to be heard. Okay, first, let's look at the viewpoint that's often tied to Western commentators. It really centers on this deep-seated fear of what they call foreign-led regime change. Now, the emphasis here is absolutely crucial. The argument isn't against change itself. It's against the source of that change. There's this profound suspicion that external powers, like the US or Israel, they have their own agendas. And this really gets to the core of that concern. The fear is that a genuine, homegrown movement for freedom could just be hijacked by outside governments for their own geopolitical games, which would ultimately hurt the very people it's supposed to be helping. All right, now for the other side of this. Iranian activists have pushed back, and pushed back hard, against this narrative with an urgent and passionate rebuttal, basically arguing that it completely misses the point. For the activists, this whole framing is a fundamental distortion of what they're living through. They argue that all this constant talk of foreign-led regime change completely erases the fact that their movement is, and, always has been, a people-led uprising from within. And they point to a long and, frankly, bloody history to back this up. I mean, just look at this timeline. We're talking 6 major uprisings since 2009 alone. This isn't something new, and they say it definitely wasn't manufactured in Washington or Tel Aviv. This is years and years of internal struggle. And here's a really vital distinction they make, separating the regime from the actual nation. The activists describe the Islamic Republic as a kind of occupying force, and they emphasize that the Iranian people themselves have been crystal clear about what they want, and that's peace. Now this is where it gets really dangerous. The activists argue that when prominent Western voices start expressing these fears of external regime change, that exact language gets picked up and just weaponized by state media inside Iran. And the claim is just incredibly stark. This narrative, they say, gives the regime the perfect excuse to label any internal dissent as the work of foreign agents, and that justifies a violent, deadly crackdown on its own citizens. So what is actually at stake for the people living this reality every single day? I mean, to really understand the urgency behind their words, we have to look at the specific conditions they're describing. And look, this isn't abstract. This is about fundamental freedoms. A woman can't sing solo or dance in public. Having a boyfriend, kissing in public, things that we just take for granted, are criminalized acts. Heck, even walking a dog can get you detained. 74. That's the maximum number of lashes a person can get for acts against public morality, which again could be as simple as a public kiss. It's a brutal, visceral form of control. And this control doesn't just stop at the front door. There's no real private life. Your own home can be raided for something as simple as having a party where men and women are just mingling. Okay, so let's bring this all together now. Let's focus on what the activists say are the literal life or death consequences of this war of words. Activists are describing what is essentially a direct pipeline. It starts with a comment made thousands of miles away. It gets amplified by state TV, it's used to delegitimize protesters on the ground, and it ends, they claim, with bloodshed in the streets. And the result of this? Well, they claim it's a staggering death toll. Over 2,000 people have been killed in crackdowns. For these activists, this isn't some coincidence. It's a direct consequence of the regime being able to brand its own people as foreign puppets. And this brings us right back to the activists' core plea. You see, for them, this is not some academic debate. It's a simple, desperate message. If you can't help us, at the very, very least, please stop saying things that help the regime hurt us. And this whole conflict really leaves us with a profound and difficult question. When we watch these struggles unfold from a distance, Who do we listen to, and how do we make sure that our own words, maybe even meant to help, don't end up causing irreparable harm?